Hello classmates, this is Rhett Pursley, and today I'm going to give a review and synopsis of the literary work Amusing Ourselves to Death, written by Neil Postman. Upon reading this book, I have to say, I felt that it was very well written, despite the fact that some of the metaphors and language that Postman used made it a little difficult for myself to understand at times. That being said, the examples that Postman used that I could quickly comprehend helped me get a much better grasp of the big picture elements that I personally took away from this book. That is Postman's alteration of Marshall McLuhan's saying, "The medium is the message," instead insisting that the medium is the metaphor. This was the idea that Chapter 1 outlined, and if I'm understanding it correctly, Postman is suggesting that our media doesn't always deliver a clear message and can be difficult to understand just what message it is trying to deliver. I found it comical, yet very truthful, how Postman described the way people on television or in public office have to focus on their appearance just as much as their agenda or anything else. He makes an example of how it would be difficult to imagine former President of the U.S., William Taft, as our leader today. Because of his physique, people would find it hard to listen to his message or respect him because they are too focused on his appearance. And it only takes a few minutes of watching the evening news to realize it's a superficial world that we are living in today. To be very successful in front of a camera, you have to be pleasing to the eye, otherwise it just won't work out. Postman then goes on to discuss, in following chapters, how our culture has shifted between various forms of media, from oral communication, to written, and to radio, and now television. Being part Cherokee Indian, I'm very familiar with how important oral storytelling was to Native American culture, and just how valuable it was. Postman discusses how scholars in courtrooms in our written culture dismiss oral communication and deem it as being not as trustworthy as something that is written could be. I find truth in that. Our current culture has a very strong belief that nothing is more concrete than something in writing. A good old handshake has been replaced by a signed and notarized legal document. Postman suggests that the trend is shifting now from a written culture to a TV-based culture, which he thinks is the reason that we are getting sillier by the minute. Postman writes that as a culture moves from orality to writing to printing to televising, its ideas of truth move along with it. The book becomes persuasive about how television might possibly be America's downfall in regard to intelligence, independent thinking, and our attention spans. As the book continues, Postman discusses just how popular written works became in the 19th century and how the famous celebrities that were celebrated back then were authors rather than TV personalities, superstar athletes, or musicians. Another point that Postman brings about is how people once spoke like how one might write, in long, complex sentences, and people once took pride in being capable of how they could speak and articulate and use this to their advantage. Today, I feel like the vocabularies and language of many Americans has dried up like a raisin. I thought it was very interesting how this book addresses how in the print culture, people were expected to be capable of interpreting and understanding complex writings, and famous people were related back to their intellectual works and writings. However, people today only associate historical figures with their picture or image, rather than what made them famous in the first place, the content of their ideas and their intellectual work. In Chapter 5, Postman goes on to chronicle how the invention of the telegraph and the photograph went together as a new way to receive information that was more entertaining than reading. I know whenever I was a child, a book wasn't worth reading unless it had a lot of cool pictures. That's why I think the Diary of a Wimpy Kid book was so popular. They are entertaining, and they have less words and thus are replaced with more pictures and drawings that are funny, which is what it takes to keep most young readers' attention today. I found it very interesting how Postman pointed out that as people watch the news or TV, a lot of times it has no effect on them, at least not how reading the news would have. And in today's society, photography and videography are just as, if not more important than the news itself. I find Postman's opening point in Part 2, stating that television isn't an extension of past forms of communication like written communication, but rather an enemy of all of them. He goes on to say that TV has become more focused on entertaining than informing. I know many kids don't just watch the news because they want to. Everything has to be entertaining. Nothing is serious anymore because it is so dramatized or conditioned to appeal to the viewer's attention needs. I think Postman's point about how TV religious sermons have become another form of entertainment is an important one, because Joel Osteen is very entertaining, which is what people want, but I don't think he necessarily gives his viewers what they need, which would be an honest take on faith and religion. Postman wraps up his book discussing how Sesame Street is supposed to be educational, but can't replace that of real teachers. He ultimately concludes that the realest threat to free speech and thought might actually be television itself, and the best way that we can stop that is to have a better understanding of TV and how it affects us. Now, in addition to this book, one thing that Postman probably didn't expect was how the TV would fall victim to even more evolution of communication. I think we spend more time on our smartphones today than we do our TVs. That being said, it's still another form of a screen and another conduit for receiving the message. What makes phones so unique, though, is the instant satisfaction they can bring. For example, if someone sees a word they don't know the definition of, what do? Do they waste precious time flipping through the pages of a heavy dictionary? Or do they spend a couple seconds searching Google to get an even more complete answer? I applaud anyone who takes the first route, because I know personally I hate having to look words up in the dictionary. In the same way, our smartphone culture allows us to watch TV, see the news, listen to music and podcasts, read books, or even better, have them read to us. I think smartphones are becoming a bigger threat than Postman could have imagined television was, or maybe he expected this, the imminent evolution of communication. I hope others take the time to read this book to increase their understanding of what television might be doing to us. I think it just might save our culture. Thank you.